Good afternoon, this is Chandra Easton here from StarAstrologyHealing.com, Living in Light. Speaking to you about the esoteric nature of the sign of Libra today. You'll see from the glyph that Libra is a very balanced sign of the zodiac. In this talk I'll be covering the rulers, that's the exoteric and the esoteric rulers. I'll talk a little bit about the constellation of Libra. I'll speak about the Archangel Festival. That's the Festival of All Angels that happens between the 23rd and the 29th of September each year. And I'll complete by talking about the myth of Hercules. Okay, so when we speak about the rulers of Libra, many people know of Libra because they know that Venus, the planet of love, is the ruler, and Venus traditionally governs women and everything to do with relationships and love. The problem with Venus ruling Libra is that relationships are not always full of love and beauty and grace. They're often full of conflict and difficulty and challenges. And that's explained when you understand that Uranus is the planet that governs Libra from an esoteric or a soul perspective. So from a personal perspective, what we're looking for is a Venusian kind of relationship, you know, where the boat's not rocked, where everything's comfortable, but if you're not careful, you're going to end up in a codependent relationship. If a relationship, on the other hand, is based on a soul connection, on a heart connection, on a shared purpose or dharma connection, then Uranus is the ruler. And the relationship will be volatile and changeable and transformational. Venus and Uranus are very, very different. Venus is a planet that's connected to the fifth ray, and that's associated with being able to link, associated with the mind and the faculties of thought. Yes, and of course relationships are often very emotional matters, or matters to do with sensuality or sexuality, and it's important to be able to lift the mind to the heart so that we have relationships that are transformational, that help us to grow spiritually. Yes, we are in the age of Aquarius, in the very early days of the age of Aquarius. This is 2,140 something years, 35-year cycle I think it is, and as we enter into the age of Aquarius, the planet Uranus becomes very profoundly important. And so we are witnessing tremendous global change and upheaval all around the planet, and also, interestingly, in our relationships, in our dynamics. This could be you and your partner, you and your boss, you and your children, but we need to kind of keep abreast of change. It's known as that Uranus has a connection to the seventh ray, known as the ray of ceremonial, order and magic, and it's associated with this transformation of society that we're going through at the moment. So of course, Libra being the middle sign of the zodiac, the seventh sign of the zodiac, if you have it in your chart, there may be a part of you that's seeking for peace and harmony and equilibrium. But if you're on the cusp of or in connection with your higher self, then you will be activating Uranus, and there'll be upheaval and things out of left sphere coming, and opportunities for great transformational change. Yes. Sometimes what happens when we get to Libra is that we get a bit stuck. We're supposed to be synthesizing the first half of the zodiac before we move on to the second half of the zodiac. But sometimes we just don't want to move, and we get in a bit of a rut, and we get stuck in our habits, in our relationships, in our comfort patterns. Okay, the constellations. In the sign of Libra, the woman holding the scales is said to be Astraea, and she's a Greek goddess of justice. And the mythology tells us that when the earth became overrun with wickedness, Astraea, Astraea, was the last of the gods to remain amongst the humans before departing to live among the stars. And in some of the ancient astrology, you'll see that the constellation of Virgo is merged with and interpenetrated with the constellation of Libra. Yes, and sometimes we'll see the maiden of Virgo holding the scales of Libra. Yeah, Australia's associated with the earthbound myths, and as it said, after she fled Earth, humanity was destroyed by a flood, except for 2 humans. And when Australia cried for these humans, her tears hit the ground and became starflowers. Yes, and you know, the mythology is not just an interesting story. There's something very, very important about the energy of justice and the balancing of the heart and the mind and the balancing of our relationships that is pivotal to this time that we're living through. Okay, so let's commence. Let's talk about what the sign of Libra is all about. It's the halfway point, Libra, between Aries and Pisces. It's a resting point, but it's also a point of balance in the year. It's a time for justice. This is cosmic justice, spiritual justice, worldly justice. And the most important time as the sun's moving through Libra is the 29th of September. And this is the watershed. The culmination used to be known as the All Angels Festival, where humanity, those of us who work with the light of our soul, work to align with Archangel Michael and the entire angelic host. And in the week leading up to this is the week commencing on the 23rd of September and culminating on the 29th. This is what we know in the Maitreya Theosophy tradition. That's maitreyatheosophy.org or heartflow.org or Theosophical Fellowship. These are the websites that hold the teachings of Lady Ananditara Shan. And it is from her teachings and her inspiration that I understand something about the Archangel Week. And what happens is that every day in the lead up to the 29th, commencing with the 23rd, we're moving through a different frequency. So we're working with the principles of law and order and Archangel Zadkiel and Lady Archangel Amethyst on the 23rd. That's a Wednesday, I think, this year, 23rd of September. And it's useful to know this because then you can align your prayers and your heart and your meditations to these themes. On the 24th, we're working with Healing the Earth through Archangel Uriel and Lady Archangel Donna Grace. Healing the Air on the 25th with Archangel Raphael and Lady Archangel Mary. On the 26th, Healing the Waters, Archangel Gabriel and Lady Archangel Hope. Working with the principles of love and active intelligence on the 27th as we work with Archangel Shamuel and Lady Archangel Charity. On the 28th, we're working with the principles of joy and wisdom with Archangel Jophiel and Lady Archangel Constance. And on the 29th, the culmination of this angel week, working with Archangel Michael and Lady Archangel Faith, and we're working and calling down the will of God. Now, this is an important week in every year, but it's especially significant this year because we are at a time of momentous choice and just time of decision, time when cosmic, spiritual and worldly justice are descending one way or the other. So I just bring your attention to the significance of this week and encourage you to go to those websites. I'll put a link to those websites of Lady Ananditara Shan so that you can explore some of her teachings. And there's also a little bit of writing on my website if you use the search function and type in archangels. Yes, you'll find many teachings associated with the archangels and how relevant they are at this time of the year. Okay, the other thing that's important is the actual full moon, and I'm just going to look onto the esoteric nature of Libra as we understand it through the myth of Hercules. I have been using these myths. I think I might have started out in Taurus and we're up to Libra now. Now, when we use Libra on an ego or a personality level, then the keynote for what happens is that we have our free will, we have our choice and we use it. And the keynote is let choice be made. Now, if you were to look backwards over the decades of your life, you would realise that some of the choices, if you had your time over, you'd make a different choice. Yeah? We have free will and we use it. Yeah? But we have to be very, very careful how we use it. Now, when the soul is operating through and vibrating well with Libra, then the keynote is I choose the way which leads between the two great lines of force. And if you know the glyph of Libra, you'll realise that there are two parallel lines with what looks like two hands in prayer position sitting in the middle. And this glyph is a symbol to do with a balance between the head and the heart, balance between the worldly and the physical and the emotional, balance between the lower mind and the higher mind. Balance in all things is the way forward. And this reminds me of the teachings of Gautama Buddha, yes, who taught about the Noble Eightfold Path, the balance. Okay, so I'll talk to you now about the labour of Hercules, often known as Labour the Seventh. And Hercules is given by the holy ones, the presiding ones, a task for every sign of the zodiac. And the task that he has to perform in the sign of Libra is the capture of the Erymanthian, I think that's how you pronounce it, Erymantian, Erymanthian boar. Okay, so I think what I might do here is simply read to you the labour. And as the power of Libra passes through Hercules, he is instructed to go forth and capture the wild boar, salvage a ravaged country, yet take the time to eat. To aid him, Apollo gives Hercules a brand new bow to use, but remembering the slaughter that he'd committed in his last task in Virgo, he leaves it behind and proceeds unarmed, except for his trusty club. In search for the boar, Hercules comes upon his friend Pholus, who is one of a group of centaurs, who invites him to share a cask of wine, and both of them call to another centaur, Cheerion, to join them. I don't know if Cheerion is meant to be Chiron, maybe it's a different spelling. Anyway, the noise of the ensuing revelry alerts the other centaurs, who are incensed because the gods had given them the wine to be partaken only when all the centaurs were present. So this results in a fierce battle, and again Hercules kills, this time the friends with whom he had drunk. Hercules then escapes to the mountains and renews his search for the wild boar. Now, as the boar proves difficult to track, Hercules sets a snare and lays in waiting. After many long hours, the boar finally comes his way and is captured. Hercules wrestles and tames the fierce beast, and seizing its two hind legs, he drives it before him down the snowy mountain slope on its two front legs, laughing and singing and dancing on his way. And those who see the two of them descending the mountain join in the laughter, for it is a bizarre and a comical sight. Well, what a peculiar myth. So what on earth does this mean? Well, the way to understand these myths, because of course even though they're ancient Greek, they are just as relevant today as they were then. So let's take the aspects of the myth one by one and explore them. Now, the wild boar relates to our ego's desire nature, our astral nature, our sensual nature. The ravaged country. Well, you could say that is the world when the ego's in charge, or it could be a particular country when the ego's in charge rather than the soul, or it could be your life when your ego's in control. Apollo reminds Hercules to take the time to eat. So clearly we have to look after the body. We can't neglect the body in favour of spirit. Yeah? Okay. We require a balanced, mindful approach to life. Now, he's given a bow. And I suppose, and he decides not to take the bow, but instead to take his club. So to me, the bow represents a tool for the journey. So I guess what I would say with that is it's no point heading on through the spiritual journey, particularly in the sign of Libra, without the appropriate tools for the journey. So what are the tools of the journey? They could be your mantras, your prayers, your meditation, your spiritual groups, your choir, your tai chi, your yoga, but make sure you've got some tools for the journey. Now, in the story, Hercules meets the two centaurs. Now, the centaurs, I'm sure you've seen them, they're half animal and half man. And of course, they represent the half animal and half divine aspect of ourselves. We are, in fact, we are soul and ego, but which one is in control? And that's the $6 million question as the sun's going through Libra. Is there a balance, and which one is going to come out on top? Is it the soul that will come out on top, or is it the ego that will come out on top? So he meets the two centaurs, his friends, and they represent the body and the mind. And what does he do? He completely gets distracted and forgets the task. He's been sent off to capture the wild boar, but here he is in drunken revelry with his friends. You could say the lower senses are being satiated. Yes, and this, of course, is a difficulty for people with a lot of Libra. They get distracted by the world. They get distracted by the wine, women and the song, or whatever it is, and forget the fact that they're on a spiritual quest. And then, of course, the other centaurs, the other beings who are half animal, half human, they come and they say, well, that wine was supposed to be for the group. It was supposed to be sacred. It wasn't for drunken revelry. Yeah, so we've got to be very mindful that we are balanced, that we don't go off into our version of drunken revelry or distraction. So it ends up in a battle, and what happens? Lo and behold, he kills his friends. Yeah, so if we're not careful, we can harm the very people that we love, who we've met upon our journey. These are the tests and the challenges in the sign of Libra, to choose appropriately the networks, the circles, the friends, and don't get distracted in any forms of revelry to excess, not all revelry, but to excess that will take us away from our spiritual quest. And certainly don't get involved in destroying the life quest of another. So after a while, he escapes the battle and goes back to the task of hunting the wild boar. Now, he locates the boar in the mountains. Now, the mountains are interesting because they indicate that we have to go into the higher mind, that we can't move through the spiritual tasks associated with Libra through the rational mind or through the body. We need the higher mind. And he uses a snare, so some skill is required. So to me, we need to gain skill, think of it as control, of our higher mind. How do we do this? Through contemplation, concentration, meditation, higher study. He is successful with his bare hands, but he shows mercy, and he doesn't kill the boar. He brings the boar back, holding it by its two hind legs, and walks it back. So there's a degree of mercy, and it's also very humorous. So when he arrives back to his teacher, great humour ensues. So you could say, in a nutshell, the Libran lessons are to respond to our soul vibration, to go higher into the mountains, into the higher mind, refuse to be distracted, have a balanced approach to wine, woman and song. All of us, stay on task, find balance in all things, find friends who are on the path, not friends who will help us get distracted. And the way I look at it is that the humour part of it, it seems to me that we need to not take ourselves so seriously. Yes, because it's a very important sign of the zodiac for integration and recognition of the continued forward movement. Any kind of rut is very dangerous when we have a lot of Libra, and certainly as we're about to enter into the Libran time of the year, let's just take the teachings from this myth with us. And remember that the keynote for the soul is, I choose the way which leads between the two great lines of force. Yes, and I'm reminded here of the wonderful book that Tarajoti Govinda wrote, Joy of Enlightenment, which is a modern expose on the teachings of Lord Gautama Buddha and the Noble Eightfold Path. Yes. Okay, this has been Chandra Easton speaking about the year that we're moving through and the spiritual tests of the sign of Libra. And of course, I work with individuals, so if you would like to know what's going on in your life or to have the map that helps you to navigate and move forward in the year ahead, please feel free to get in touch through starastrologyhealing.com, and of course also work as an ascension healer and an angelic clairvoyant. Okay, lovely to connect. Bye for now.